Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through stories people are talking about and sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. Why is everyone in American local news reading from exactly the same script? Transparent backpacks mandatory for students at Florida's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. 6 cops restrain a disabled man in Australia. It's caught on CCTV and has caused an outcry in the Aussie media. And the Easter Bunny appears on a balcony with an obsessive tweeter and his wife, and the internet laughs. Right, top of the newsfeed. The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Now your TV, laptop or phone is not broken. What you just saw has been watched millions of times online. It was put together by a guy at the website Deadspin. It shows 36 local news stations in the US all reading the same script about fake news. Now, the script was sent to them by a company called Sinclair Broadcasting Group, or SBG, which own all of those free local stations. Now, predictably, America's left-leaning media like MSNBC and CNN have had a field day with this, accusing Sinclair of pushing Trump's so-called war on fake news. And of course, the president has responded on Twitter, saying, "So funny to watch fake news networks, among the most dishonest group of people I have ever dealt with, criticize Sinclair Broadcasting for being biased. Sinclair is far superior to CNN and even more fake NBC, which is a total joke." Well, the president's words. Bob Callow is a professor of journalism at the University of California in Berkeley and a consultant here at TRT World. Now, Bob, it's probably an obvious question, but why is that just so odd, what we just saw?
Americans are used to having local stations owned by different private groups, but they function very independently, generally. It's basically your news in Detroit or Baltimore or St. Louis. It's unusual to have national ideas and national perspectives used in an editorial way, and of course it's very unusual for it to be one message, like as we saw in this piece.
And what's so special about Sinclair? As we said earlier, they own nearly all of these local stations, and they're making a special push, a significant push for that kind of other side of the media that's not MSNBC or CNN.
Well, this is the culmination of a debate that's been going on for about 25 years about, is the media liberal? Fox obviously tested that idea over the last 20 years, and we're able to move into the market by saying the other guys are too far to the left. We're going to counterbalance. Sinclair is doing that on a very large scale. They've kind of come out of nowhere, but it's a very powerful group, and they're very, very closely tied to the Trump administration.
I mean, we saw that video of all those anchors reading the exact same script. I read it as well as a bit of a gag. But some of those anchors weren't very happy about having to read that, were they?
This has not happened before. The American system is largely private. There is a public network, but it doesn't have, the same kind of hold on people's imagination. People really depend on local news. It's the most trusted part of broadcasting in America. The idea that you're going to be not serving your community, but instead kind of parroting what you're told is something that I think a lot of local journalists are probably struggling with, and it'll be interesting to follow this.
Absolutely. I mean, when this story first started happening, when Sinclair first started buying up all those licenses, I think some journalists did quit. But the trust aspect of local news is an interesting part of this, isn't it, Bob? Because when I was training as a journalist, I was told to forget about television. It's all going to die off. Everyone's going to be working in an online media. But television locally in the US is still very strong and still obviously profitable.
Very profitable. A lot of predictions about the future of media. You know, these are predictions. These are guesses. People, ordinary people, working people, depend on local broadcasting. They trust it because they're talking about things that they can verify. A lot of the national news has become very ideological. The CNN, MSNBC, Fox, etc. That becomes kind of noise for maybe news junkies, but for ordinary people, who are worrying about their jobs, their communities, their families. Local news is where they go, they still watch, and it still is a very powerful force in American society.
All right, Bob, thank you. Let's be fair to Sinclair Broadcasting Corporation. They have responded, and in a statement they said the promos serve no political agenda and represented nothing more than an effort to differentiate our award-winning news programming from other, less reliable sources of information. Let's take a look at what else is trending on social media. And the dating app Grindr has defended itself after it was found to have shared users' sexual health information with two companies. The companies were hired to optimize the app to make it easier to use. Grindr say they've now stopped sharing their sexual health information with its users. It is being talked about online, so let me tell you, Channing Tatum of Step Up fame is getting a divorce. He and his wife, Jenna Dewan, issued a joint statement, the best part of which reads like this. Absolutely nothing has changed about how much we love one another, but love is a beautiful adventure that is taking us on different paths for now. Aww. And you've heard that Winnie Mandela has died. Much of South Africa is in mourning and people have been posting their condolences and comments online. Let's take a look at 3 things about her life that you may not have known.
My husband has been fighting for the liberation of the African people, for the working harmoniously of all the racial groups in this country.
Now, students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida are back in class after February's school shooting in which 17 people were killed. And a new security measure has been put in place. Their backpacks must be transparent. Now, this has, of course, made some of the teenagers very, very upset. Imagine being a teenage girl and having everyone able to see what you're carrying around all the time. Well, some have reacted on Twitter. Carmen Lowe said, "This backpack is probably worth more than my life." While Lauren Hogg had a particularly cutting response, saying, "My new backpack is almost as transparent as the National Rifle Association's agenda. As much as I appreciate the effort, we as a country need to focus on the real issue instead of turning our schools into prisons." All right, let us show you this video from Australia. This is 6 police officers restraining and then seemingly mocking a disabled man in the city of Melbourne, and the whole thing was caught on a security camera that he'd installed after a burglary a few years back. Now, John's caseworker, John's the man being restrained, called the police as she was concerned about him, but when the cops arrived, they, as you can see, held him down for quite some time and then used pepper spray. Well, Karen Milton is a journalist based in Canberra and joins us now. So, Karen, what's happened to those police officers seemingly using all that force on John?
Well, nothing yet, and that's, I guess, what part of the interest in this case is. There's been no investigation until this came to light just now. Now the police service in Victoria are saying they will investigate, but the lawyer for this man says he doesn't have great confidence in that, and they are going to sue the police, and they're taking this issue higher to a watchdog body that deals with corruption and investigates the police.
I mean, what's hard to get from that video, not hard to see the use of force, but it's the words that are being used. And the reason I said that they seem to be mocking him, because they were asking him whether the pepper spray felt nice, whether he was feeling any pain. They were really kind of teasing this guy as if they were mates and this was all some kind of joke.
Well, indeed, they weren't mates for sure. They'd been apparently warned that he might not want to go with them in the event that he wasn't well. They might have to take him to hospital. He also had a 10-year-old assault conviction. That may have played into their thinking. But they asked him to come outside and he said that he wouldn't. And then they just dragged him outside, beat him with a stick, sprayed pepper spray, and then hosed him in the face and swore at him. It does seem incredibly heavy-handed, and there's a lot of talk about it here in Australia.
I mean, what are people saying about it, Karen? Of course, these are cops. They've got to do their job. If they thought this man was dangerous or a danger to himself or to others, I guess that they are within their rights to use force.
I guess the problem is that other videos have now come to light showing other alleged examples of police violence in arresting people. So there's now a question about whether this is a pattern of behaviour and whether it's properly investigated when this kind of thing happens. And we recently saw a very senior police officer in the same state-based police service have to resign because he was found to have been sending abusive messages on social media under a pseudonym. So there does seem to be something amiss in the police service in Victoria, and I guess that's what they'll investigate.
Absolutely. So where does this go from here? As you said, the investigation is ongoing. Have the cops been suspended or are they still on active duty?
They're still on active duty. The police service is saying they're concerned about this. They are going to investigate, and the broad-based anti-corruption commission in Victoria is also examining this. But the lawyer for this man is saying the statistics are pretty bad for police investigating themselves, and that's why they think this bigger body should have a serious look, not just at this incident, but at other alleged incidents involving police.
So we'll keep an eye on it. Karen, thank you very much for now. All right, let me take you around the world for the other stories you need to know this Tuesday. Malaysia have passed a law banning fake news. Anyone said to be publishing news deemed fake can be imprisoned for 6 years. Now, opponents complain the law will be used to stifle free speech and further stop people from publishing news that's critical of the government. Now, remember the guy who blamed affluenza, that's being too rich to know right from wrong, for killing 4 people while driving drunk when he was 16? Well, Ethan Crouch, now 20, has just been released from prison after serving less than 2 years. $29 million worth of drugs have been displayed by police in Thailand. It's said to be one of the largest hauls in the country's history. 11 people have been arrested. Now, upcycling, not riding your bike uphill, but taking something old and useless and making it useful. Have a look at this. I'm about to get myself a pair. Now, a man dressed up as a president has appeared next to a man dressed up as the Easter Bunny in Washington, D.C. This is the awkward moment they met on a balcony. Note the handshake, making Easter great again. They then hung out for a while until the guy in the suit got bored and went to do something else. All right, that's all from us here at the NewsFeed team. Do reach out to us with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Make sure you follow, subscribe and add, and I will see you again tomorrow.